Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings and welcome back. As we wrap up the March is Women's Month, this just popped up on my radar. I follow an account called Data Republican, small r, with their research on the DOGE, and somebody else profiled this screenshot. This table shows the total contributions and government grants for each 501c3 charity. Search by EIN or name to see how much taxpayer money each has received. All right, you know, you can look at the numbers there. It says indirect government monies estimated $6, total taxpayer dollars $6, contributions total $235,220. What is an EIN? That is an acronym, an abbreviation for Employer Identification Number. When you fill out your taxes every year, you can, include things. For example, for a period of time, I had various contractors working for me who had their own EIN, and I would include those EIN numbers. For example, one of them was the cleaning lady that I hired, and she had an EIN, and I would put that down as a business deduction. That's that's all that is, and that doesn't mean I have any money. It just means at one point I did, but that's a whole different ball of wax that melted. Going back to this, Data Republican has a website, just as it sounds, datarepublican, one word.com, that you can type this in. All right, so what's the significance of the EIN of 463 408 143? And for what reason am I associating it with March is Women's Month? The culprit to a lot of the problems that are going on in society today can be traced back to this feminist frequency. Okay, great. Well, all right. So what's feminist frequency? Well, that's the name of the 501c3. As I've stated in the past, I'm not much of a video game player. I've played them in the past. I've had, Xbox 360, a PlayStation 4, I think it was. But my game playing was pretty limited to things such as the Grand Theft Auto Vice City, the Knights of the Old Republic, and the Batman Arkham games. Beyond that, I had enough going on in my day to day life that the amount of time going into those, yeah, I just didn't. I didn't, and I still don't have the time to be able to put into it. Um, but I know that for a lot of people, video games are a great way for them to blow off steam, to de-stress, unwind, whatever you want to call it. And as far as a vice goes, I would hazard it is a more healthy vice than drinking alcohol, doing drugs, smoking, whatever, other vices come to mind. So the reason that this is of interest is that at the time that I cut my connections to television almost permanently, as I've stated previously, I had Netflix. The Cassie J. Red Pill documentary wasn't shown on Netflix. I soon thereafter canceled my Netflix subscription and focused primarily on if I wanted to watch something, I just watched it via YouTube. And I had and still maintain an extensive video collection, and that's my media content. And I go to other people's homes and I'm disgusted by the frequency of the volume of the commercials. I use a Brave browser, so I don't even see the commercials on Rumble. Yeah. But getting back on topic, when I made that transition, our Anita Sarkeesian was the name being bantered about as being the one responsible for upsetting the industry of video games. And her organization, Feminist Frequency, it goes on to say here, it was founded in 2009 with a mission to provide feminist critiques of media and advocate for more inclusive and representative media landscape, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it took her 5 years to get tax exempt status, but she was a political ideologist trying to shoehorn feminist ideology and women into video games in a manner that met her approval. And if you follow accounts such as Geeks and Gamers, and I believe Ryan Kennel, uh, I believe he's one of them, and Jeremy at the Quartering is big into gaming. Those guys will talk your ear off, I would imagine. They probably have a backlog of videos documenting this stuff from 10 years ago of her actions. The thing that stands out for me is the Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin from Europe, paid for admission to what was called the VidCon or something like that, bought a ticket, and Ms. Occasion was provocative. She called Mr. Benjamin a garbage human being without any motivation other than he made commentary suggesting that the game industry was fine and it didn't need intervention. Uh, and if you listen to Mr. Benjamin speak, he's such a very eloquent sounding individual with a very soft spoken voice. I can't imitate him. But the point being is, I don't listen to him often. And when I have, you have to crank the volume up to be able to hear what he's saying. And he's not rude. He's direct, at times, but he's not rude. He doesn't feel the need to attack people, but he does draw up questions, which is good. And one of the questions, whether it was by him or others or collectively, was that women were invading yet another male dominated space. And the documents that we showed at the beginning, which I'll insert here in a minute. All right, so that was a very, very quick minute, as in a 1/60th or 1/30th of a minute. The chart here says $235,000 plus was paid out to this organization. And according to Data Republican, if I'm reading it correctly, I don't know if this means 100%, but based off of what it says here in the text, table shows total contributions and government grants for each charity. She claimed herself to be a charity in 2014. She received $235,220, I'm presuming in 2023. According to Sandman on Rumble, she made just over a dozen videos, which means if you do the math, what did he say? 18 videos? So if I remember correctly, I didn't take notes. I just found this stuff to be interesting because this is one issue with feminist ideology that is rampant in society for especially the last 60 years. Based off of that, if she did in 2023 18 videos and was paid out that $203,220, she's making over $11,000 off of US tax dollars per video. I don't make anything. I don't know if you make videos, but I don't know how much you're making, but I'm willing to bet neither of us are getting government money for making videos. I'm not implying that I want that. That'll be a whole different topic. I don't want to get into the weeds with that. Uh, what's distressing is you have an account such as this, Feminist Frequency, who is inserting themselves into a male dominated space. For what reason do they need to be inserted into a male dominated space? I don't know if it's still in business. Is curves for women still in business? Well, I could be mistaken, but typing it into the search window, it pops up as a website and listed as a business. The point is, men aren't allowed in there. That's sexual discrimination. But ever since the 70s and 80s in particular, there's been one lawsuit after another that ends and eradicates male only spaces. And the Gamergate nonsense was just the latest, well, or at that point in time was the latest invasion with the help of the government. So it's easy to speculate that the government was in league with Anita Sarkeesian, paying her off for her disruptive, you know, being a disruption operative to go in and do the same thing to destroy these male only or male dominated territories. And you can look at this historically. If you look at the founding of the United States from a group of colonies, separate colonies, into a contiguous 13 state nation, it was founded by a group of men who met either in a continental congress or in pubs or conducted writings and organized themselves into a group that resisted. And if you want to maintain power over a society, you do so by villainizing your men and making it so that they are working too much to be able to associate with one another, make it so that they cannot fraternize with one another. And you do this by inserting women to disrupt it and report on the actions taken by these groups of men. Women are used as infiltration units quite often. All right, without going all deep into the weeds with this is what happens. That's part of the reason COVID lockdowns were a thing also. So you've got the destruction of male only spaces, such as gentlemen's clubs, men's associations, and you have the allowance of women's only clubs being allowed to persist and grow and being paid by the government to do this. This organization operated as, they call it an educational nonprofit, but there's not a thing about her that she did that was educational. She was an instigator, she was a provocateur. The gaming industry has collapsed. They can't sell a video game to save their lives. Nobody's buying them, or the people that are already bought into this stuff, hook, line, and sinker. All right. Um, so I wanted to bring this up because your tax dollars, my tax dollars, are being used to pay feminist insurgents to upset the social order, such as this Feminist Frequency or Frequency Feminist organization by Sarkeesian. Let's see. All right, so that's all I want to say about her. Now I want to tie it into the most recent actions by the Department of Homeland Security a year ago. All right, so there's an account on X who uncovered a nefarious action being done by the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. The account BX on X does deep dive investigative journalism, and she came across information of a contract being given out to an out, and this is the way that they do it. They don't do it themselves. They use individual or company contractors to do their dirty work for them. So the DHS sponsored a report from last year, March 2024, about the so-called manosphere creators, such as Bo Refec of Legion of Men and others, Fresh and Fit, Rollo Tomasi, I think, was on there, whatever podcast, and even Pearl Davis, if I'm not mistaken, was on there. And they listed these people and gave them a ranking as to the most, what they perceived and what they listed as the most dangerous. They listed these men who do not advocate violence, who do not advocate taking actions to do anything to disrupt society or overthrow the government or anything along those lines. The only actions that they advocate is that, number one, make yourself the focus, such as self improvement, doing what you can to better yourself. And then, as a pebble in a pond makes concentric circles expanding, as you improve yourself, you will improve your family, your network, your community, and it expands from there. That is what these individuals express. But the government had them on their target site to take out. These individuals lost their monetization, and it comes back and it ties back in to insurgents such as Anita Sarkeesian. There's other bad faith actors at the time. I don't know who they are. As I've said repeatedly, I'm not a video game guy. I just observed it as an attack and something that it was a new medium that I had come into and was observing and found it fascinating that somebody was picking at at a group and was being attacked, maliciously, and they had the means to speak out about it via their YouTube videos at the time, and since then Rumble videos and X videos, and to be able to counter these attacks. Then you fast forward 8, 9 years, and you find out that the US government, in addition to funding this feminist ideologist, this feminist insurgent, and you find out that they're subcontracting to an organization meant to disrupt individuals such as Bo Refec. And I remember he was making videos specifically stating that he was getting the runaround from YouTube. He had messaged them and they would outright just stonewall him. And then it came out about 3 weeks later that he was on this list that was being provided to the Department of Homeland Security, that he was an instigator, a provocateur, when all he's saying is, guys, lift weights, read a book, improve your mind, clean your room. Yeah, that's more of a Jordan Peterson thing, but essentially, do what you need to do to make yourself the best that you can. And he was being demonetized, stonewalled, and then he finds out he's in the top 10 that the government has listed as a villain. So this is evil. This is evil that our tax dollars are going to pay for people such as Feminist Frequency, Anita Sarkeesian, or this outfit that went and did a hit job on these individuals, such as Pearl Davis or Rolla Tomasi or Fresh and Fit. I mean, you may not like them. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but um, they called it the Diverting hate. It was a 2021 DHS, grant, and they paid out $20 million to do hit pieces on these individuals. And BX on X, I believe she's a one woman operation, and she's the one that did the deep dive and the reveal on this program. Um, I didn't save the information at the time, but I found it very offensive that the government, with all of its problems in life, all of its abuses of power, were focusing on men that were advocating that men just need to buckle down and take care of themselves, and then take care of their family, and then take care of their community. And it all starts with, most recently, with this woman, Anita Sarkeesian, being the reason that men's spaces are being destroyed. I mean, she's not the initial one. This has been going on since the 60s, but and before, but it really hit its stride in the 80s. Anyway, I found this fascinating, and March is Women's Month. I wanted to get this out there for you and let you know. If anybody speaks to Data Republican, maybe she's able to let me know what it is I'm looking at on this charity funding chart. Is this really truly government money being paid to her for doing nothing? And if it is for doing nothing, she needs to give it back.